Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Beyond Alerts, Mastering SIEM Use Cases to Drive Real Security Impact. I'm Nisreen Shams, the Assistant Vice President of Business Development at Stratagem, and we're very happy to have you all joining us here today. At Stratagem, now a Bell Canada company, we believe cybersecurity is not just about alerts or tools. It's about transforming how organizations approach security as a strategic enabler. Our mission is to go beyond the noise, leveraging SIEM use cases to deliver proactive, real-time insights that truly impact your security posture. We're here today to share how our pioneering cybersecurity mesh architecture integrates cutting-edge technologies, AI, machine learning, and threat intelligence to create an ecosystem of resilience. These solutions not only help detect and neutralize threats faster, but also empower businesses to focus on growth, minimizing cyber risks. I'm joined today by our talented team, Tala Iqbal, who is the Director of the Cyber Intelligence Center, and Simran Tati, our SIEM use case architect, who will dive into 1, how to transform data into actionable intelligence, what it takes to build use cases that truly matter, and also the business value of reducing noise, improving detection, and enabling proactive defense. By the end of the session, you'll walk away with strategies to elevate your security operations, turn challenges into opportunities, and drive real business value. With that being said, I'll hand it off to Tala and Simran to introduce themselves to the audience.
Thank you, Nisreen. Hello, everyone. My name is Talha Iqbal. I'm the Director of the Cyber Intelligence Center at Stratagem. I have 12 years of experience in the cybersecurity industry, and I specialize in leveraging security tools and processes to secure organizations and mature their security posture. At Stratagem, I lead our 24/7, 365 Security Operations Center. We focus on the SIEM and SOC operations, and I'm happy to be part of this webinar, and we'll be sharing some insights on the concepts and value of SIEM, along with Simran, who will talk about the strategies for building actionable use cases that drive meaningful results to secure organization. Simran, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Simran Tati, and I have been working at Stratagem for 7 years. My current role is SIEM use case architect, where I specialize in designing and optimizing vendor-agnostic SIEM use cases for threat detection and automation to contain the threat. Back to you, Nisreen.
Thanks so much, Simran and Tala. I really appreciate that. So we'll kick it off now into an agenda. If you could go to the next slide. Great, so we'll start off with a little bit about who is Stratagem, what is the unique capabilities that have set us apart in the industry, what is a SIEM, and how is it orchestrated into the bigger security as a service mesh. As well, we'll talk about turning data into action, how we're building use cases that really matter and really make a difference in your environment. As well, we'll give you a behind-the-scenes look of what use case development looks like from concept to execution, as well as we'll do a little section on what are the emerging threats and how does Stratagem assist you to proactively defend yourself and your organizations. And then lastly, we will close out with a very important section on the business value of what Stratagem is bringing to the table through improved detection, reducing noise, and enabling proactive security. We'll also close out with an interactive Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, I encourage you to place them in the chat, and I will bring them to the attention of Tala and Simran for the benefit of the audience. Next slide. Great, so we'll start off with a little bit about who is Stratagem. I think most people now know who Stratagem is in the Canadian industry. We've been around for about 9 years, entering our 10th year of business in cybersecurity. So Stratagem is a Canadian-based next-generation managed detection and response provider, specializing in managed security services, leveraging advanced technologies like SIEM, EDR, SOAR, and threat intelligence to protect organizations from cyber threats. As many of you know, earlier this year, Stratagem was acquired by Bell Canada, which is really a testament to the innovation, the integration, and the automation capabilities to enhance client security postures. Above all, we are laser focused on delivering real impact and outcomes for our clients. Next slide. A little bit about the challenges in this industry. We all know them, they are not new to us, but the first one is the complexity of security infrastructure. There seems to be a real focus on the tools in the industry, but not so much on the integration and the outcome of these tools. As well, rapidly evolving threat landscape. We are in an industry right now where we are receiving a lot of different types of attacks, and generative AI is enhancing those capabilities. As well, talent crisis. We have about 50,000 open headcount in Canada alone for cyber talent. And lastly, the need for real-time incident response. We know how quickly hackers can make their way laterally across the environment, and so we need the ability to respond promptly. Next slide. In addition, don't take it from us, take it from Gartner. We were recognized most recently in Strategem's market guide for managed SIEM services, co-managed security monitoring services, and also very proud to be recognized in the managed detection and response category. Now, the bigger significance here is not just that Gartner, a billion-dollar research firm in the US, recognized us, but what it is that we were the only Canadian company to be recognized in all three of these guides. So it's a big testament to what Strategem has been able to accomplish in the past 9 years. As well, Strategem was recognized as a major player in the 2024 IDC MarketScape for Canadian managed detection and response, primarily for our rapid deployment, for our mesh architecture innovation, which is assisting with the rapid deployment, the 15-minute SLA for incident response, and also, most importantly, in this industry, the proactive threat hunting nature of Strategem's capabilities. All right, with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Talan Simran, who will walk us through the first topic today, which is what is a SIEM. So over to you, Talan Simran.
Thank you, Nisreen. Now, before we jump into understanding how correlation use cases help organizations detect and respond to threats, let's first understand the basics. Let's talk about what is a SIEM solution. So you must all repeat after me. SIEM is not a data lake. Although there are similarities in the way they handle data, a SIEM is not a general purpose data storage system. There's a common misconception that SIEM is nothing but a centralized log storage system. Instead, SIEM, which stands for Security, Information, and Event Management, is a security-focused platform. It's designed to detect and respond to cyber threats in real time by analyzing billions of log events that are coming from various sources within your infrastructure. While a SIEM can integrate with a data lake for extended storage and deeper analysis, its primary role is to act as the brain of security operations, which gives us our unique ability to detect and respond to threats in a timely manner, maintaining visibility, and at the same time adherence to regulatory and compliance requirements. So what exactly is a SIEM solution? A SIEM solution serves both as a technical tool and a business enabler. A SIEM bridges the two critical domains, which is security operations and business objectives. So it gathers and analyzes and correlates vast amount of technical data from various log sources, from various systems to detect and respond to threats. Now, it also translates the security activities into meaningful insights for business objectives. That aligns the business priorities such as compliance, risk reduction, operational continuity, strategic decision-making, and stakeholder confidence is boosted. So let's look at how SIEM can generate actionable use cases and how it bridges the gap between security operations and business objectives. Simran, over to you.
So now, by serving as a bridge between security operations and business objectives, a SIEM ensures that technical security efforts directly supports and enables the business goals, fostering collaboration between security teams and stakeholders, while providing a unified platform to address both technical and strategic needs. Now, let's see how we can generate actionable use cases. There are three key elements, which is log data, threat intelligence, and correlation, that helps us to produce the actionable use cases. Now, let's take a look into the key elements. Let's begin with log data, which forms the foundation of any SIEM system. Logs are collected from multiple log sources, which can be your firewalls, endpoints, cloud platforms, and etc. And each log represents an event, like a single login event or a file transfer or a network access. This is the raw data that we work with to build a comprehensive security picture. Next is threat intelligence. This provides information about known malicious IPs, domains, file hashes, some global threat trends to enhance our analysis. This helps us to identify and prioritize real threats rather than chasing every anomaly. And the third critical component is correlation. This is where the SIEM controls the dots between isolated events and threat intelligence data. Correlation of events identifies patterns that single event might not reveal on their own. For example, let's just say one failed login attempt. That might not matter, but multiple failed logins from an unusual IP address, which could indicate the successful brute force attack. So together, these components go through the funnel to produce the actionable use cases. These are clear, meaningful alerts or insights that SOC can act on immediately instead of sifting through millions of events. We can further explore the opportunities to automate our defenses and reduce the time to containment. And the security teams receive high priority incidents with the context they need to investigate or respond.
By the way, as simple as the funnel looks, over the years at Strategem, we have defined an efficient 6-step process that we'll talk about later in the slide deck that allows us to apply these use cases against multiple SIEM solutions, making this process of building actionable use cases efficient, and to some extent, we can automate the process of identifying and responding to threats. Now, let's talk about what a SIEM use case is. So we understand what is the function of a SIEM in an organization, and we talked about building actionable use cases, but what exactly is a SIEM use case? So a SIEM use case is a specific rule or scenario that can detect, monitor, and respond to potential security threats within your organization. Now, it defines how the SIEM tool processes and correlates data into identifying meaningful patterns, anomalies, or malicious activity, suspicious behavior that can identify a threat vector that can generate an actionable alert. So there are different types of use cases that we can build, such as threat detection use cases, which can be used to identify malicious behavior, malware detected on a user's machine and not blocked. We can have a use case defined for compliance monitoring, such as access to sensitive data to comply with PCI or GDPR requirements. We can have use cases for behavior monitoring, which detects deviation from normal behavior. This could be crucial into identifying insider threat. We can also have use cases that allows us to investigate root cause, such as tracking the lateral movement of a threat actor across multiple platforms or multiple systems. So what we have done is define a structured approach at Strategem, which ensures that every use case we build not only detect threats, but can also provide actionable insights for the response efforts against that threat. So I'll let Simran walk through some of the components that make the use case efficient and effective.
So let's take a look into some components. The very first thing is to set up the objective. So this defines what the use case is designed to detect or monitor. This serves as the foundation. For example, we might set an objective to detect the creation and use of an administrative user account. This is to detect elevation of privileges or abuse of admin account. Next, we identify the required log source. This is where we define the log sources that are needed to meet our objective. For example, to create a use case for administrative account, you need to have AD logs. To detect malware activities, you will need to have EDR, which is endpoint detection response logs. And similarly, to detect any command and control traffic, you will need to have your firewall logs. Now, once we have the logs, we define the logic or correlation. This determines how events from different sources are connected to identify a potential threat. For example, we might correlate multiple failed login attempts followed by a success from a single IP within a short period of time to detect a brute force attack. This step ensures the use case captures patterns that represent malicious or suspicious activity. We can take it one step further by looking at denied MFA logs, which may indicate that if a user has been compromised or not. And now, with the logic in place, we set thresholds. This defines the conditions that trigger an alert. For example, we can configure the use case to alert us when more than 3 or 4 accounts have been locked out within 15 minutes, instead just focusing on a single user account getting locked out. And finally, we define the response action. which is what happens when the use case is triggered. This could include generating an incident, isolating an endpoint, or notifying the SOC team. We can also automate the response wherever possible to contain the threats faster and reduce the manual workload for the analyst.
Thank you, Simran. Now let's take a step back. Let me show you a simple way to understanding what a SIEM does. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this analogy of a needle in a haystack. It's a perfect representation of what a SIEM is designed to do. The haystack here represents the log data overload. Every organization, no matter the size, it generates an overwhelming amount of log data every second, from your firewalls to your servers, endpoints, application, cloud services, you name it. Each log source represents some kind of activity, but 99% of this data is normal. It's benign activity. It's harmless activity. However, hidden within that vast haystack, there might be an unusual threat actor. There might be a suspicious event. So that's the needle in the haystack. The needle represents the critical security events or anomalies. Maybe a hacker is trying to exploit a system. Maybe an insider threat is accessing sensitive data, or there's a malware outbreak which is spreading across your network. These events are often subtle. They're buried in millions of normal events, and they're hard to find manually. So this is where the SIEM comes into play. Think of the SIEM as the ultimate tool for finding the needle in the haystack. A SIEM, in its most basic form, collects all the log data from various sources in your organization, normalizes that data into common format, uses advanced correlation rules to sift through that noise, and collects the logs to make sense of them. At Strategem, we use this large haystack of data to, to understand what is normal for organizations, to test our correlation use cases, to map it to threat intelligence data, to map it to MITRE framework in efforts of detecting that needle in the haystack. So now let's talk about how this data can be used into building meaningful use cases with an actionable response action associated with it.
So now let me walk you through how Strategem Managed SIEM delivers unparalleled insights and value to our clients. At Strategem, we manage security operations for over 100 clients across a variety of industries, processing approximately 10 billion events per day. These events are collected from diverse log sources like firewalls, endpoints, cloud platforms, and applications. Over the past 12 months, we have investigated over 400,000 incidents, leveraging our expertise to filter out noise and focus on what truly matters and understanding normal versus suspicious behavior. We know what constitutes normal behavior for various log sources, such as regular user logins, file transfers, or network activity. And more importantly, what stands out as suspicious or anomalous activity, like abnormal file downloads, unexpected geolocation for user logins, or unusual spikes in traffic. With this level of visibility, Strategem doesn't just provide reactive alerts, we deliver proactive insights, enabling organizations to improve their security posture, to detect threats faster, and gain confidence in knowing what's happening in their environment at all times. In short, Strategem's scale and experience make us uniquely capable of turning billions of daily events into actionable insights that keep our clients secure and ahead of evolving threats.
So let's take a moment to kind of understand how the SIEM correlation use cases work in an environment. So let's take an example about a fisherman casting a net, right? So here you see that a fisherman is casting a net. The collection of data is similar to the fisherman casting a net, where they're trying to cover a wide area to catch as much as possible. This is like the role of a SIEM, right? The key function of a managed SOC, where the SIEM collects large amount of data from various sources, where every event, every log, every activity is like the water under the net. The more you collect, the better your chances of identifying something valuable. The net's mesh is like the correlation rules that we set in the SIEM. It determines what gets caught, what gets let through. Without fine-tuned correlation use cases, you might catch too much, which creates false positive and noise, causing irrelevant data to be reported, which may cause us to miss something valuable, which may cause us to miss something critical. Similarly to how a fisherman designs their net to catch specific kinds of fish, we design our correlation rules to focus on specific threats. Now, once the net is pulled in, the fisherman then analyzes the valuable catch, just as the SIEM analyzes correlated events to spot meaningful threats. For example, EDR logs might indicate that a malware was detected across multiple systems, indicating lateral movement or a malware outbreak. That becomes our catch. Now, over time, the fishermen adjust their nets, adjust their techniques to improve their yield. Similarly, we have to keep our use cases refined. We have to learn from past incidents. We have to learn from on what is normal versus what is considered malicious. We have to continuously enhance our correlation rules to focus on the most critical events, which allows us to reduce the noise and reduce false positives. For example, a single blocked IPS signature. It represents an isolated event. The IPS is doing its job. It indicated a block attempt, but it lacks context. Now, it could easily be a false positive, or it could easily be a benign activity. But if multiple signatures are being blocked from the same originating source IP to the same target destination, that could indicate a larger activity. That could indicate a coordinated scan or a targeted attack. But keep in mind, when we are fine-tuning our use cases, when we are refining the net, we need to exclude our own internal vulnerability scanner, for example. This is to reduce any noise, reduce known events, and focus on the threats that matter. Now, at the end, the fisherman delivers the catch to the market, so turning their efforts into something valuable. Similarly, the function of a SIEM is to transform raw data into actionable alerts. This enables our SOC team to respond effectively to real threats, ensuring security and compliance.
So now,
Simran, over to you. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So now, as Talha mentioned, the correlation rules is just like a fisherman casting a net. While building the correlation rule, we need to define the logic that connects seemingly unrelated data points, identifying the patterns, anomalies, and potential threats. Now, let's quickly talk about these key data sources that feeds into these correlation rules. Number one is the firewall logs. These logs track network activity such as blocked or allowed traffic. EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. This provides insights into suspicious file executions, process behavior, or malware detections. Azure AD, this provides the identity logs to help monitor user behavior, privilege escalation, or access to system events. And next, threat intelligence, this adds the context by identifying known malicious IPs, domains, and enriching the SIEM's ability to detect and prioritize the real threats. Now we need to catch logs from your network infrastructure, logs which gives us the visibility into switches, routers, DNS logs that can help detect lateral movement and anomalies like DNS tunneling. Now, cloud applications, which are your SaaS applications like Microsoft 365, Salesforce, AWS, which provides critical visibility into user action and data access. And finally, vulnerability data, which identifies known weaknesses, highlighting immediate risk. When these diverse data points are analyzed through correlation rules, the SIEM produces actionable alerts. So to recap, correlation rules are based on aggregating and normalizing log data from multiple sources, which allows us to build a logic that connects seemingly unrelated data points, identify patterns, anomalies, and potential threats, and finally generating actionable alerts, reducing false positives, and focusing on events requiring attention. So now, let's take a look at some of the examples of these correlation rules. The first example that we're going to look at is multiple changes by a single administrator. So the objective of this use case is to detect unusual administrative activity, which is single administrator making multiple unauthorized or unexpected changes within the short period of time. To detect this, we need to correlate the data from AD authentication logs and application logs, and to create the correlation logic that will detect multiple system changes initiated by the same admin within short time and flag the activities outside of regular patterns, which can be modifying the user privileges or changing access controls list. Next is the EDR detections across multiple devices. In here, the focus is to identify ransomware outbreak or lateral movement by detecting malware alerts across multiple endpoints. This will require us to correlate the events from EDR and network traffic, which logs to detect malicious activity such as file encryption, unusual process execution, along with suspicious network connections. Next is our DLP alerts and outbound traffic to suspicious IPs over the firewall. The objective here is to identify potential data exfiltration by correlating DLP alerts with outbound traffic to known malicious or suspicious IPs. This will use the correlation between DLP logs, firewall logs, and threat intelligence integration, which can trigger an alert when sensitive data is transferred, example, files containing credit card data, with outbound traffic to flagged IPs will help us to detect possible exfiltration. And last but not the least, file integrity monitoring logs detecting changes to critical files. This detects unauthorized or suspicious changes to critical system files, particularly those associated with payment card processing or critical systems. To prevent system compromise or compliance violation, which will be the PCI compliance in this case, this will require us to correlate the events from the FIM logs, which is file integrity monitoring logs, which tracks changes to files, authentication logs, and to identify the user or process responsible for the changes. This will flag the modifications to protected files, which can indicate an insider threat, malware, or unauthorized system access. So these are the few examples of the SIEM correlation use cases that helps the organizations.
Thank you, Simran. So over the next few slides, we want to take a deeper dive into the process of creating these SIEM correlation use cases. Now, the process starts from the initial hypothesis all the way to development in a live environment. This process is much more than simply writing the rules or collecting data. The process ensures that every SIEM correlation use case that we build, whether it's defined in Microsoft Sentinel or Palo Alto SIEM or Splunk, the use case is actionable, effective, and adaptive. So let's take a look at the process where it initially starts with the initial hypothesis, right? And this could come from emerging threats. This could come from threat intelligence. This could be built using unusual behaviors observed during a pen test or patterns uncovered during threat hunting activity. From there, we translate that hypothesis into a clear use case. We define the objective that Simran talked about earlier. We design the set of correlation rules after extensive research, testing, and refinement. We then validate the use case with sample log data. Based on that, we fine-tune the thresholds. We eliminate the false positives. We align the use case with real-world threats catered to clients' environments. Now, over the next few slides, Simran will walk us through this each step from the moment the hypothesis is formed to building, testing, deploying the use cases in a robust environment. Now, by the end, you will see how this structured approach ensures that use cases not only works, but adds real business value by A, reducing noise, B, identifying threats early, and C, enabling proactive responses. So to quickly recap, the first step is threat research, understanding the components that are used to detect an anomalous behavior. Then we define the correlation logic, the thresholds, that's number 2. Number 3, we validate the use cases by looking at sample logs in a controlled environment. We then fine-tune or optimize the rules to reduce false positive and improve accuracy. Then we activate or enable the use case in live environments so that it could be activated against real-time data coming in. And last is refining the rules to reduce noise, to improve detections, and to accommodate for emerging threats and malicious network behavior.
All right, so let's do a deep dive into all these steps now. So to begin with, it's going to start with the threat research. Now, this lays the foundation for building the effective use cases. So in here, we analyze emerging threats and attack patterns using tools like threat intelligence feeds and sandboxing results. For instance, if a new ransomware variant is detected, we study how it behaves, what file it targets, and how it spreads, and the anomalies it generates in the logs. We also leverage penetration testing to identify unusual behaviors or vulnerabilities in the environment. And finally, we perform historical searches on log data to identify suspicious activities that may have been missed in the real time. Now, this helps us to gain a clear understanding of the threats, behaviors, and patterns that we want to address, ensuring our use cases are relevant and targeted. Now, once we have identified the key threats, we're going to move to our next step, which is use case building. Now, in this step, we define the logic or correlation rules that detect these threats. For example, we might set up a rule to identify brute force attack, which is by correlating multiple failed login attempts followed by a successful login. Now, we can also pinpoint specific event IDs or log types from unique sources such as firewalls, endpoint, to detect any risky behavior. Now, then thresholds are set. For example, triggering an alert if there are multiple malware alerts within 15 minutes. This ensures us that we're capturing the meaningful incidents and also helps us to build well-defined correlation rules that translate pattern into actionable use cases for detecting the threats. Now, we will move into the next step, which is testing with sample logs. Now in here, we validate our logic by testing with sample logs. In our controlled demo environment, we ingest sample logs and anonymize client data to test how the rule performs. This step ensures the use case identifies threats as intended without creating noise on irrelevant activities. So for instance, we might simulate a phishing attack to verify if the rule accurately flags suspicious logins or unauthorized access attempts. And this step helps us to confirm and validate the rule functions as expected and is ready for a real world application. And now after we perform the test, we move to our fine-tuning phase. In here, we start by setting low thresholds, first to see if we capture all the wide range of events, which allows us to observe patterns and identify false positives. Now, here we are using real client data. We gradually adjust the thresholds and logic to ensure the rule focuses on genuine threats. For example, instead of flagging every login attempt outside business hours, we refine the rule to only alert on such events which combined with unusual IP address or privilege escalation or a malicious IP. So the main objective of this step is to optimize the use case, reduce false positives, and maximize detection accuracy and minimizing the noise for the SOC teams. And now we move into our production phase. After all the fine tuning, we implement this in our live environment. At this stage, it actively monitors client data, generating actionable alerts in real time. For instance, if the use case detects an unusual combination of outbound traffic and a DLP alerts, it's going to raise a flag for a SOC to investigate the possible data exfiltration. And now finally into our last step, which is the continuous improvement. Here, we refine the use case based on the feedback from clients and learnings from real world incidents. So for instance, if we notice frequent false positives, we adjust the logic so that it focuses on the critical behaviors based on the individual customers. We also adapt the use case to reflect evolving threats, such as new attack techniques or vulnerabilities. Wherever possible, we incorporate the automation as well so that we can reduce the manual intervention and streamline incident response. This helps us to track the use case as it evolves over time, staying relevant, efficient, and aligned with our organization's security needs.
Now, to stay ahead of attackers in an ever-evolving, ever-changing threat landscape, today, cybersecurity is no longer about just reacting to incidents. It's about anticipating, adapting, and detecting threats before they escalate. This brings us to the concept of rapid proactive defense. So all of what Simran mentioned, the key steps in defining a use case, we also have to leverage MITRE attack framework. We have to leverage threat intelligence. We have to make use of AI to build and deploy these SIEM use cases in record time. Now, the problem we face isn't just that their complexity of modern threats, but it's the sheer speed at which they evolve. Traditional processes for building, detecting use cases often take too long, leaving gaps in monitoring, gaps in detecting the risk, and usually these risks go undetected. Now, this is where the MITRE attack framework comes into play, and we use the AI-powered SIEM solution to enhance the detection capabilities. Together, they give us the tools used to build actionable use cases faster than ever before. Now, MITRE provides a structured framework on adversary behaviors. It shows us how attackers operate, and then threat intelligence add an additional layer of contextual information on the reputation for IPs, list of malicious domains, attacker-specific tactics, making threat intelligence a key to enriching SIEM use cases. And we utilize platforms like Anomaly Threat Stream, which provides real-time data feed into our SIEM solutions, identifying the indicators of compromise. Now, AI and machine learning are revolutionizing the SIEM platform. AI-based SIEM solutions such as Microsoft Sentinel with Copilot for security, Palo Alto Cortex XIM that brings a new level of intelligence to security operations by automating the detection, such as unusual activity or network behavior, and reducing the detection times for zero-day attacks by identifying any deviations from normal behavior, any deviations from our key baseline. We're able to then take advantage of these enhancements and the ability to reduce the time from building a use case, identifying and responding to a threat vector. Now, by leveraging a combination of AI, MITRE attack framework, and integrating SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and response tool, we can build an autonomous SOC where the SOAR automates the response workflows with advanced detection rules coming from the SIEM, threat intelligence enriching those alerts. We can now take smart actions against containing the threat, remediating the threat, and reducing the manual efforts required from the SOC team. Now, over the years, Stratagem has built a robust repository of use cases that are mapped to MITRE attack framework. Each use case built is accompanied by its own playbook outlining the appropriate response action for those specific threats. These use cases are designed to be adoptable and can be seamlessly replicated across any SIEM environment, whether you use Microsoft Sentinel, Splunk, LogRhythm, QRadar, FortiSIEM, it doesn't matter, because these use cases built by defining a structured step or phased approach can then be applied. The methodologies can outline here can then be applied to any SIEM platform, giving us the same effective outcomes across diverse platforms. Now, Microsoft Sentinel in recent times closely aligned with the MITRE attack framework, so we can leverage the tactics, techniques, and procedures to enhance our threat detection. There are many out-of-the-box SIEM analytics rules that can be mapped to MITRE. This mapping allows our security teams to identify specific stages of an attack, such as lateral movement, credential access, privilege escalation, and correlate them against specific tactics and techniques. Now, what we have done at Stratagem is we have taken our use cases, replicated them in Microsoft Sentinel, and it allows us to A, visualize the threat and the attack patterns, and B, set up dashboards, reports to help the SOC team understand our coverage, understand and identify the gaps in our detection process, and continuously build on creating custom analytics rules and threat hunting queries specific to MITRE techniques, which allows us to cover a large variety of targeted attacks against the organization. Now let's talk about AI and the transformative role of AI in modern SIEM solutions. Keep in mind that AI is changing the security landscape. We are seeing FortiAI, which is a Fortinet tool integrated in FortiSIEM platform. We're looking at Microsoft Copilot integrated with Microsoft Sentinel SIEM platform. And we have the Palo Alto Precision AI. All allows organizations to achieve faster, smarter, and more efficient threat detection and response. Now, these platforms, they leverage AI not just to enhance security operations, but also leverages machine learning models to process and analyze large amount of data, identifying anomalies and behavioral deviations that can indicate potential threats or things that would otherwise go unnoticed. So it helps us in finding that needle in the haystack, right? Now, AI can flag unusual behavior. AI can flag unusual suspicious network patterns. It can identify unexpected geolocations or abnormal data transfer, but you have to analyze those patterns and you have to uncover if they're previously known normal benign activity and continuously fine tune those rules. So you still need that human intervention to fine tune the rules to eliminate the noise and the false positive, but it aids in building the detection rules in record time. Now, the AI doesn't stop at detection, right? So it is continuously learning from your tuning efforts. So it's continuously learning about new threats. It's continuously analyzing historical events and historical actions associated with those events to build an automated correlation rule. Now, instead of relying on manual use case creation, the AI can build the patterns for you. It can recognize the important event IDs, the important behavior that can easily be used into building a net new use case. So let's take a look at some of these examples here. So the 4D AI, which powers 4D SIEM, it provides machine learning and detection-driven use cases tailored for large enterprises. We are looking at Microsoft Copilot, which allows us to automate security workflows and enhance the incident response process. And the Palo Alto Precision AI, which leverages behavioral analytics and precision threat detection with actionable insights, right? So in the ever-evolving threat landscape, we're looking at these enhancements as a necessity. It enables faster detection, it enables smarter response, and continuous adoption. So AI is ensuring that organizations stay ahead of the attackers and maintain a proactive security posture by detecting and responding to these alerts in real time. So let's talk about the evolution of detections over the years, right? So we have the traditional way or the reactive way of identifying potential ransomware outbreak. Now, typically, ransomware outbreak is detected after it's too late. You know, a user reports files being encrypted. Security teams then spend days analyzing the log data, manually writing detection rules, manually trying to correlate the data, looking at rapid file changes, access to sensitive directories. All of this is a reactive process. It's a time-intensive process that leaves organizations vulnerable to ongoing attack vectors and changes in the stages of an attack. On the other hand, leveraging Stratagem's approach of integrating threat intelligence into your SIEM, correlating against known ransomware indicators, correlating against known file hashes, looking at malicious command and control traffic, identifying communication to malicious domains, and leveraging MITRE ATT&CK framework to build specific use cases on ransomware detections. So we're looking at the behavior. Are we seeing any files being encrypted? Are we seeing any recovery services being disrupted? Are we able to identify abnormal changes to files, right? All of this can then be added to the logic of a correlation use case, which allows us to detect these changes as they're occurring, right? We can also add the EDR to the mix. Now, EDR log sources is also identifying if there are any detections or blocked activity that would be malicious in nature. This proactive approach ensures faster detection, reducing the risk, and stronger security posture. So let's apply the same logic to phishing. Traditional approach for phishing detection is identifying a phishing attempt after an employee already fell victim to it. Security team then spends days identifying, what URL was clicked, where did the email came from, what is the source, what specific keywords can we use to block it. This reactive approach is slow. It's prone to false positives, and it leaves organizations vulnerable to phishing campaigns. Now, in contrast, Stratagem's approach of leveraging threat intelligence can then identify phishing campaigns. We can map indicators to MITRE ATT&CK framework, and we can build a use case that monitors the email logs coming in, monitor the risky sign-in behavior from your Azure environment, monitor failed or denied MFA, monitor any malicious URLs coming into the user's mailbox, or if the user interacts with the malicious URL by leveraging or correlating it against threat intelligence, and automate the response action to block the emails before they spread to other users, or block the malicious URL before a user interacts with it. Or we can kill all active user sessions, enforce password resets by integrating the SOAR workflow, which looks at the phishing related activities and then automates the response for better containment, stronger defenses against phishing campaigns. Now let's talk about the business value. So you heard us talk about what is the SIEM, the concepts of a SIEM use case, SIEM acting as a centralized monitoring system. It's being used as a security tool to identify and respond to threats. And partnering with an MSSP like Strategem ensures that you get the expertise in managing these tools. You get the expertise in extracting the true value of these solutions by integrating it with your existing security tech stack, and by leveraging the log data, enhancing the use cases to understand the threats and provide 24/7, 365 monitoring and response capabilities. At Strategem, we specialize in SIEM and SOC services. Your organization gains access to continuous threat monitoring. You can now rapidly respond to incidents. We can minimize your downtime and protect critical business operations by ensuring that you have an agile team with deep expertise in SIEM and SOC solutions. Now, it doesn't matter if you use Azure Sentinel, FortiSIEM, Palo Alto XIM, Splunk, Logarithm. We can provide tailored support using the methodologies and the core step-by-step process of building these use cases against any SIEM solution. So at the core, we talked about how log data and threat intelligence along with correlation helps build these use cases. We use it to reduce the noise. We use it to eliminate irrelevant data, eliminate false positive, and we only focus on alerts that matter. We then talked about the structured approach, the 6-step process, ensuring that use cases are precisely crafted, starting with threat research, building use cases tailored to correlation logic and thresholds, testing it with sample log data, fine-tuning to optimize for accuracy, and putting it into production, making sure that we are continuously improving the tactics and the techniques, and we are maintaining the relevance and the effectiveness of these use cases. Finally, I want to talk about our layered approach that amplifies this value by starting with a tabletop simulation, testing and validating our use cases in a controlled environment. Processing outward, we develop vendor agnostic use cases that work across diverse client ecosystem. These use cases are flexible, they're scalable, and we can then incorporate automated responses. These capabilities allow us to respond to threats in real time, contain the risk before it's too late. And together, these layers build and deliver a proactive, adaptable, and comprehensive security solutions tailored to your needs, allowing businesses to focus on more strategic objectives while staying secure. Now, with that said, I will hand it over to Nisreen to talk a little bit about Gartner's strategic planning assumption and the cyber mesh, along with some closing remarks. Nisreen, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Salah. Thank you, Simran. I appreciate that. So thank you so far to everybody who has been listening to the presentation. I hope you're taking some good notes and good insights away from what's happened today. So I want to kick back into the strategic planning assumption that Gartner made actually back in 2021. You don't see the footnote here, but if you look into the research guide, they said that by 2024, organizations adopting a cybersecurity mesh architecture to integrate security tools to work as a cooperative ecosystem will reduce the financial impact of individual security incidents by an average of 90%. Now, the significance of this statement is not only the fact that we were recognized for the methodologies we were doing, was Strategem began this journey 6 years before Gartner made this assumption. So to show the maturity of the vision, this is where we were. And so we were catapulted into a lot of recognition in and around the 2021 timeframe when Gartner said that Strategem, a small Canadian company, has been innovating and really showing the future of where cybersecurity needs to go. And again, this is the core of the cybersecurity mesh architecture, also known as a cooperative ecosystem. Next slide. This is the image of the cybersecurity mesh architecture. It's the innovation and the integration that is delivering the superior outcomes that we are working with here at Stratagem. And so if you look around the boxes around this very intricate design, which is the mesh, you'll notice that we have very different tools in there, different best-in-breed technologies, whether you're looking in the SIEM, you're looking vulnerability management, you're looking at the endpoint, you have multiple best-in-breed tools. Now, it's not an exhaustive list, but we are trying to indicate here that we are vendor agnostic in the sense that we're not going to come in, rip and replace your technology. As long as you are using the best-in-breed technology, we can come in and kind of latch on to what you're doing and fully integrate it for you. Now, the outcome of this is essentially the ability to have a very nicely meshed communication highway where all your tools are connected and speaking in real time, such that we can take real-time action. We can contain malicious activity in under 5 minutes. Now, if you didn't have this mesh, everything would be working in silos. And so it would take a very long time to be able to make these very quick strategic actions that you need to be able to fight fire with fire in this industry. Next slide. This is an image of Stratagem's ecosystem. We're using best-in-breed technology. So we're not developers. We're not in the business of rewriting code. There's some pretty smart minds who have done that already in Silicon Valley. So we're taking the best of the best tools. And you think of Stratagem as kind of an invisible line integrating each one of these technologies to create that, let's call it, highway of communication, where we're de-siloing the value of these tools. And each one of these tools is quite powerful in their own right. Now imagine it all orchestrated in your environment in 4 to 6 weeks. That's the reality of what we can do, and that's why Bell Canada recognized Stratagem's capabilities in this industry. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. Any best-in-breed technology can be integrated into the mesh. Next slide. All right, and now we're here for an interactive Q&A. This is the fun part. We like to hear all of the questions or any comments, if that's the fact today. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to put their questions in the chat, and we will go from there.
Nasreen,
one question here that's coming up, Talal.
Oh, sure.
Let me just bring this up here from Mohammed. They're asking, what does Stratagem use for the threat intelligence feeds?
So I think I responded to that in the chat. I might have done it privately though, but we use Anomaly. Within Anomaly, we have multiple paid threat intelligence subscription. So we don't correlate and ingest all the data from Anomaly. We verify that to be a true positive indicator of compromise by comparing the risk factor for that IOC against multiple threat intelligence feeds. So if multiple threat intelligence feeds are telling us that this IP, this domain, or this file hash is malicious, then we take that into consideration. So to answer your question, we use Anomaly, and within Anomaly, we have multiple paid threat intelligence subscriptions.
Fantastic. Another question here. How can SIEM systems be effectively integrated with zero trust architectures to enhance security in a dynamic environment?
That's a loaded question. So first, you need to understand what exactly is zero trust architecture, right? So it's important to understand the core components of zero trust architecture. So you need to have your identity access management solution. You need to have your EDR solution. You need to have your microsegmentation in place. You need to have secure web gateway, cloud access security broker, DLP. All of these tools, all of these components now feed into the SIEM solution. So they're sending all their log data, all the telemetric data into the SIEM solution. There, we can create coalition use cases that is ensuring compliance, policy compliance to those solutions, right? So we can build logic to say if there's any violation or any event that indicates a potential violation of our policy, then we trigger an alert, which can then have an automated response tied to it. So if someone is sharing data outside of the organization, we can contain the asset using the EDR platform. We can block that user's access using the IAM system, and we can isolate that that entire network segment if there's a malware outbreak using microsegmentation tools, right? So it's all about having the right solutions in place and integrating them together, and to quote Gartner, to work as a cooperative ecosystem. And SIEM is a crucial part of that ecosystem for log analysis, correlation of log data, and for having meaningful use cases, identifying policy violations.
That's great. So we'll close out on one last question here. How can organizations effectively measure the ROI of implementing a SIEM solution?
See, that's a challenging one, because measuring the ROI is not just about understanding the quantifiable metrics, but also the qualitative benefits of the tool, right? So something that you can quantify would be, how can I reduce incident response time? How can I efficiently detect or mitigate threats by reducing the time for detection, right? And the time for containment. So are you measuring time for detection, time for containment, time for resolution, right? And also, are you tracking how much resources or time is saved on manual investigation, manual alert triage, manual log reviews, right? Now, on the qualitative side of things, you can look at how incorporating a SIEM solution and building this cooperative ecosystem is enhancing your security posture. So when you do your risk assessment, when you try to look at your overall security posture, are you able to move that needle? Are you able to enhance your detection capabilities? Are you able to enhance your response capabilities? And from a qualitative perspective, and especially with business alignment, is it helping you in maintaining regulatory or compliance requirements? Are you required to have a SIEM solution for PCI DSS? Do you have to abide with GDPR regulations, right? Are you avoiding any penalties, or are you maintaining audit readiness by having these components, having the SIEM solution play an integral part in detection and response of security threats?
Fantastic. So thank you. If you go to the final slide here, in closing today, I want to appreciate everyone's time that took out of their busy day to come and listen to Strategem's innovations. We'd love for you to follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date. We're very active, posting new content, new events, and kind of new places that Strategem is visiting in the world. As well, I want to share that I do see questions from Caesar, Mohammed, and Dawn. If you want to email me separately, I'd be more than happy to take those questions on over through email. We just don't have the time today. But with that being said, again, I want to give a final thank you to everyone that attended today, and a thank you to Talal and Simran for taking time and presenting with us. Until next time, we will send a recording out to everybody. Please be in contact. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.